This is Bottled Up with Daniel Posner, owner of Grapes the Wine Company, a fine wine retailer in White Plains, New York. The Wall Street Journal called me one of the most influential wine retailers in America. Here to remind you that wine does not have to be complicated, and it definitely doesn't have to be snobby. Bottled Up gives you a fresh idea on what to drink, insight into the new trends, and a real look inside the wine industry. It's not about tannins or tasty notes you can't pronounce. It's about enjoying wine with a fresh spin. Welcome to another episode of Bottled Up. I am your esteemed co-host, Daniel Posner. With me, special guest, very, very, very special guest in that order, the great Kevin Zraly.
Daniel Posner, not Posner, it's Posner.
So I've been working with Kevin, we're going to get to this, almost 20 years on Westchester Magazine's Wine and Food Festival, on and off, and he has mispronounced my name every single time, to the point where when he appeared most recently on Fox 5 New York, I had friends text me and say, how come Kevin refuses to pronounce your name correctly? And Kevin, why don't you tell them why you like to mispronounce my name?
Well, actually, I went to your name, Posner, for pronunciation. You can do that. You're wrong and I'm wrong. You got to go listen to it. Everybody do that. Posner, Posner, pronunciation.
My wife likes to tell me I'm wrong. I don't think you can tell me I'm wrong. You have to say I'm right. All right. Kevin's resume needs no introduction, but we're going to do one anyway. Kevin, why don't you tell our millions of followers a little bit about yourself?
I thought you said it was 10 million.
All right. So we're down to 4 listeners right now. Tell the 4 listeners a little bit about yourself.
I have a degree in elementary education and history.
This is like a 25-minute episode.
Well, that's it. That's all I'm going to say. And I didn't want to teach because the kids drove me to drink, so I went to the history and wine thing. Actually, this started in 1970 as a waiter in a restaurant in upstate New York. And then, lucky me, I fell into wine. I'm 20 years old, and I'm studying wines, and there's a book called Wines of America by a guy named Leon Adams, who's no longer with us. I'm a sponge for everything at this point. I'm even teaching a wine class at 20 years old, which is nuts. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm reading the book, and on page 22, it says, grape growing and winemaking in the United States of America began in Ulster County, New York, by the French Huguenots in 1677 in New Paltz, New York.
Wow.
There it is. So I'm 20 years old saying, well, God wants me to do this. So God, here I am 56 years later. I got to Windows in the World restaurant. I just turned 25. Basically, the guy who created Windows in the World, his name is Joe Baum. He created the Four Seasons restaurant in 1959. He created 300 other great restaurants, La Fonda del Sol, Forum with the 12 Caesars. We just had that anniversary, that party for the opening of 50th anniversary of the opening of Windows in the World. But he did Windows in the World and all the restaurants in the World Trade Center. Then went and did the Rainbow Room, and then came back to Windows in the World after the bombing in 93. People sort of forget the bombing in 93. I don't. But I still continue to teach my Windows in the World wine school. I'm very happy to say, at this point, 30,000 people. I think I'm going to take the lead in that. And if there's any legacy, it's that I had that many students. Remember, my degree is elementary education. So it all worked out. After the third glass of wine, everybody's elementary.
This is true. It is impressive. An impressive resume. 30,000 people have gone through the Windows on the World wine education course over the years. How many books sold?
I've written actually my 10th book right now. But the Windows on the World wine complete wine course book I created because there wasn't a...
And this isn't the 10th book you're reading. This isn't like a picture book. You mean you've written 10 books? Yes. Like your little hobby of reading.
I'm on number 10 right now.
Okay.
And you're in it, of course. People in my life that have changed my life. And so I put you in there.
For better and worse. I'm on the worst part, yeah.
I spelled your name correctly, just so you know. Anyhow, I started teaching classes for club members. Windows in the World was a club at lunch, 2,500 club members. That branched out into becoming a public wine class. And the people were saying the book, they didn't have a book. There was a book by a guy named Alexis Bespaloff, who was a very close friend of mine in the early days. He wrote the Signet Book of Wine. Even my students who were very highly educated say, it's too much, we don't want to know that much. That's why I wrote the book. We are now at over 4 million copies sold of that book. And yeah, I'm going to applaud. I applaud it. And it's the best part is it's the 35th edition and it's still selling well, very well.
Amazing. By the way, I have 500,000 free copies of those 10 million. Every time I see Kevin, he offers me a copy. So I know that adds to the counter. I don't need a bed mattress at home anymore. I have Kevin Zraly's books.
By the way, you say Zraly. The name is, if you really want to be correct, Kevin Zraly.
Zraly.
Yeah.
Kevin Zraly.
Zraly. You know what it means? In Czech? Ripe, like a ripe grape. No, you never knew this about, you never thought about it, did you? What does Posner mean?
It comes from the city of Posen in Poland. So the
See,
Posners, I mean, it must have been a very incestuous town if they all had the same last name, right?
I'm so glad we found that out.
Yeah.
By the way, if you take my name down, if you're doing this whole name thing here right now. So you take a look at my name, Kevin, get rid of the Ke. What do you got?
Vin. Wine. Oh my God. I mean, it's
And
it's
this is too much
serendipitous
business.
right here. I mean, what
Don't worry.
ripe wine. I mean, you
Right
should just go
wine.
by Vin Zraly. What
That's my name.
you've just been wasting your time the last 56 years here. Vin Zraly. All right, let's move on to the show. We're down to 3 viewers, 3 listeners. They're dropping like ripe flies right now. Questions from the audience is our first segment, and with that, we have a great question from Kim from Brooklyn. Thank you, Kim, for always listening, always following us. And Kim's question as we head into summer season, what is your best wine and burger pairing? Kevin, you want to take that one?
Sure, definitely. As a matter of fact, I had some last night. Exactly the same wine that I was drinking 55 years ago. Exactly the same label. It's called Louis Jadot Beaujolais Village.
Wow.
I said that to my son. We had dinner last night. My oldest son, Anthony, who's actually in the wine business. He's at T. Edwards. It's like the COO or something. That's Bellecart Salmon that he represents, he imports.
And we're going to get there because Billicart Salmon has a table at Westchester Magazine's Wine and Food Festival this year, but we will come back on that one because we'll talk. But yes, good entree to Anthony and T. Edward Wines and the Billicart Salmon table that you can taste Billicart's outstanding champagnes in the connoisseurs tent with Kevin Zraly on Saturday, June 13th.
Yep. Let me tell you about the Beaujolais, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's inexpensive. I like the Beaujolais Village, the second level. I don't need to have a Cru Beaujolais. I made last night, shepherd's pie, which is so easy to make. That was the perfect wine. And you can chill it down. That's what I like about it. It's a red wine. I'm really a red wine guy, although I'm going to tell you some of the white wines that I like as well. But that's a perfect wine. Under $20 a bottle for my whole life. That was the first red wine I ever had in my life.
Really?
Well, when you start off with wines, I don't know about you, but I started off with German wines, German Rieslings, light style, not even Sauvignon Blanc, Rieslings, because I wanted that sweetness, a little touch of sweetness, or, half dry or whatever you want to call it. And then, okay, I went to red wine. The first red wine was exactly that wine.
Wow.
So,
Excellent. So that's your burger wine combo.
we're doing a burger bash too, aren't we?
We are doing a burger bash. We are. They call it burger beer
Burger
barrels.
bash and barrel.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
it's
we
good.
call
You're
it.
gonna have Captain Lawrence beer this year featured,
Yeah.
which is great. Local brewery in Westchester County and over 20 outstanding restaurants providing great burgers on Thursday, June 11th. And Kevin and I will be there, and we will be sampling each one of those burgers. I think.
I'm sorry, I can't do that. I tried once, 20 different burgers.
Yeah.
So we have judges though, right? We have professionals that are
We
going to
have Pat LaFreda is the meat sponsor as always for the event, and he's a judge along with a few other very esteemed colleagues, and they're very capable of tasting all 20 burgers. I agree with you. I usually get through about 6. They're small little sliders, and then cast my vote. But I will have my microphone on me, and I'll be going around and embarrassing the heck out of anybody and everybody I see on that night. It's a very fun night. A lot of great spirits, a lot of great food. It's an awesome evening. We've typically done some canned wines the last couple of years. We had a great Italian spritzer last year. The year before we had Pinot Project from Skurnik. And I love handing out canned wine on that night because I think people want something easy, simple, glassware always being a problem on a night like that. Everybody's got, 4 burgers in their hand, and just get them something to wash it down. Maybe there's like a Beaujolais out there in a can that I haven't found yet.
I have 2 questions. I have 1 question and 1 comment, if I may. Michael Skurnik, who you just mentioned, I just want to bring this up. Michael Skurnik was a waiter at Windows in the World 50 years ago, and his brother Harmon was a busboy. And Michael came to me one day in the wine cellar.
It comes as no surprise to me, by the way, that Michael was the waiter and Harmon was the busboy. I just want to say that out loud because Harmon will be listening to this, and I want to make sure Harmon is clear that I know that he was the busboy.
So anyhow, Michael Skurnik came to me and he said, listen, I want to get out of being a waiter. I want to get in the wine world, because we've been training everybody. You want to talk about restaurants today. Windows in the World sold more wine than any restaurant in the world all the way into 2001. And it came to 3 things. One was selection. We had 2,000 wines. You don't need 2,000 wines, but we had 2,000 wines. It was windows on the world from all over the world. And the other thing was pricing, because pricing was unbelievably low. We doubled the wine price, our price, and added $1. I always thought the dollar was for me. I just never got it. But that said,
the checks in the mail.
Yes. The other third, 1/3 was selection, 1/3 was pricing, but the other third was training. Michael Skurnik went through all of my classes. And we've never talked about this, but there's hundreds of people that worked at Windows in the World that are now in the wine business. Michael is one of them. And he created the Skurnik Imports, which everybody seems to know, with great, great products. So that was Michael Skurnik thing. The other question I have for you is canned wine. Where's it going? How is it now?
Canned wine for me, we've tried in our stores. It's not our wheelhouse, but we always carry canned wine. We always have some available. Summertime, we definitely do some canned rosé. Where is it going is always a great question, because I think like if you go out on the beach, you see a lot of canned cocktails, but you don't see a lot of canned wine. You go to restaurants these days, you can order even high noon, but you don't see canned wine. So I'm not really sure where canned wine ends up in the marketplace. I think it's a great idea. I think qualitatively it's out there. Like we tried one summer a few years ago to sell a canned Sauvignon Blanc from the Loire Valley, which I thought was brilliant. I mean, we promoted it as like, Sancerre in a can, and it just did not hit with our clients. I drank it. I thought the wine was actually quite good, but there's definitely, I think the one beauty of canned anything these days is the ease of transaction and the ease of transition for a customer as far as a gateway goes, where they don't need a fancy wine glass. They don't need a corkscrew. They don't need any of what we would look at as in the restaurant world, the whole drama of opening up a bottle of wine and everything that goes with it. A can, you just pop the can and you drink right out of it. So there's definitely a need for it, and I hope it's successful. It's just not as successful as I would like it to be.
Wine in the box.
Yeah, it's another one. I mean, we bring in rosé. We're very successful with one rosé, a very upscale rosé from California, Bedrock, which is, Joel Peterson's son, Morgan Twain Peterson, and Chris Cottrell make a great 3-liter box of rosé that we sell every year. We have great success with one red from Italy, a Sangiovese that comes in a 3-liter box that comes in about $30 for a 3-liter. That's great value. And we're thinking about bringing in more in that line because we have a couple customers who love that brand, and it does quite well for us. But that's actually the most successful wine in a box we've had. And the quality is there, and it's just easy for customers to just put it on their countertop or put it in their fridge, as the case may be, and just put it into a cup and enjoy. I mean, all these things certainly have a need in the environment we're in today. So we're happy to support whatever we can to get wine in people's hands. That's the goal. So let's move on to bite, sip, taste. We have still a lot to talk about, and we're down to 2 listeners. That's me and you right now. So there's no one else here, so you can say whatever you want. So bite, sip, taste, the next part of our segment, your most recent favorite overall bite.
So last night I said to you that I had the shepherd's pie, which is pretty easy to make. But the night before that, probably one of my favorite dishes, and you're talking about sip as well. We have a great fish store in town, thank God, in New Paltz. And so I know I'm getting fresh fish. So I went up, got my scallops, and I got my shrimp, and I made my scallop shrimp combination. It's very, very simple. Olive oil, salt, and pepper. That's it. And the wine I had with it was a Sancerre. You mentioned Sancerre before.
Yeah.
The best part about it, 2025 in Sancerre was unbelievable. It's one of my favorite vintages. So that's what I had 2 nights ago. And we spent a lot of time in New York, you and I. So a couple of weeks ago, the Oyster Bar. And I think it's one of the great places. God, how many years has it been there? 60, 70? I don't know.
Yeah, a long time.
Long time. But I sit on the countertop. If anybody's never been there, go to the countertop.
I just want to clarify. Kevin doesn't sit on the counter. He sits at the countertop.
No.
When you sit on the counter?
The reason I sit under the counter is because I'm right next to the kitchen. I can watch them cook it, and it's so hot when it gets to my plate. And again, I think it's telling a little bit about my secrets of life.
Yeah. And the Oyster Bar is a very special place.
Well, I started off obviously with oysters. I threw a couple of clams in there. I mean, it's just so satisfying. You're not bloated afterwards, lightness of, and then again on the train and sleep.
So best overall taste then? Did we hit that too? Is this a bite sip taste
I
moment?
think it's coming down. Summer wine, I said Beaujolais. Plain wine is the recent one, both here at my home with the scallops and the shrimp. And then the Branzino, it comes out. Sancerre is definitely my favorite white wine for fish. It's unoaked, the acidity, all of the things that your listeners know.
Yeah, of course.
I know that Grapes has thousands of different Sancerres there.
We always have a great Sancerre selection, and 2025s are just coming in. I think we have a couple in stock, and every day it seems like more becomes available. So we're happy to make those purchases. There were a few lean years in Sancerre. Production's down, volume's down, quality even not so great, particularly probably for the style that we're looking for from a typical great vintage of Sancerre.
It means when you have a great vintage like that, you can drop down to a Sauvignon Blanc or a Loire Valley or whatever, Henri Bourgeois.
You can look at Puy-Fumé, Coteau de Giennois is hot right now. You've got options. It does not have to say Sancerre on the label. Bottom line.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, Sauvignon Blanc from Loire is great. And as I always tell every client that walks in the door, Sancerre is a place. It's not a grape. Loire Valley White will save you a lot of money. Terrain, like you said, is just, you can still do great. 15 bucks a bottle and be very happy. So
I always thought Sancerre was the name of the grape.
And
I've got to revise
that's-
my book now.
yeah, what page is that? I mean,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to send out how many copies? Like a little addendum, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's one thing, the Sancerre, and maybe most of your listeners know that, but when I'm teaching classes, nowhere
Yes.
on the label of the Sancerre I had this week or any of them say pretty much none of them say the name of the grape. And it is 100% Sauvignon Blanc, and it is by law 100% Sauvignon Blanc. And that was the wine when I was living in France, when we go to the bistros. In the old days, the bistros, that's the one you'd get in Paris, Sancerre.
What percentage do you genuinely think anyone in the wine business, restaurant, retail, wholesale, supply side, they know that Sancerre is Sauvignon Blanc?
It's much better today. The retailer, I would never say this 50 years ago, trust your retailer.
Yeah, true. Okay.
And now I say, go to the retailer like grapes that they know wine, and then they can work with you. That's the best advice I can give to a consumer.
Did you have a trusted merchant when you started at Windows that you used to go to for stuff for yourself?
My connection was always Sherry Lehman.
Sherry Lehman.
By the way, they were very close friends with Joe Baum. There was a Rat Pack of Danny Kaye, James Beard. They all would get together. Burgess Meredith. I mean, it was fun in those days. I got to know Danny Kaye really well. As a matter of fact, because I don't know if you know this, but Danny Kaye was a very good Chinese chef. When he passed away, I got his daughter Dina to donate woks. It's so important to me, these woks. They're at the Culinary Institute of America. But then beyond that, she funded, if you will, the Danny Kaye Theater at the Culinary Institute of America.
I didn't know that.
I mean, I could tell you stories of the interesting people that I met.
And we are going to do that the next time we have you on the show, because I know you are a wealth of knowledge with amazing stories in the wine world. And that's why, for me, it's always so great to talk to you. I mean, such a pleasure. But with that, our final segment of our designed podcast is what everybody likes to listen to. We call it the rant. And that's where the bottled up name comes from. So on this day, as we head into next week's Westchester Magazine's Wine and Food Festival, and we talked a little bit about restaurants, we've now talked about distribution, Sancerre, Beaujolais. What has you bottled up, Vin Zraly?
Well, it's very simple. Obviously, I'm in the restaurant business, and to look at the markups in restaurants on wine is nuts. I will not go to a restaurant anymore. They will not allow me to bring my own wine in. I don't mind paying a corkage, but I'm not going to pay a 400, 500, 600% markup on wines. And it's only gotten worse since the pandemic, because I think the stat is 25 to 40% of total alcohol sales in a restaurant is wine. And the most important thing right now is wine by the glass. And the last statistic that I saw from the National Restaurant Association said up to 75% of all wines sold in tablecloth restaurants in the United States are wine by the glass. But bottle sales are crazy. Plus, I guess wine by the glass is a good thing, because it always was at Windows in the World. And we didn't have it when we started in 1976. It was carafe wine like Beringer. So anyhow, my pet peeve is we're bottled up about pricing of wines, not only in restaurants, but also I think the Cabernet Sauvignons out of California right now are out of control.
So a couple of things. We just had Chris Carpenter on the show, and he just touched, obviously he's a winemaker out in Napa Valley. He works for Jackson Family Wines, La Jolla, Cardinale, etc. And my rant was the pricing of Napa Valley Cabernet. Thank you for that. I also have touched on previous episodes of this show on the problems with the pricing of wines by the glass versus the quality you get. So if you're an average consumer coming in, if you're the 30,000 people who have gone through your educational classes, and you go to your typical restaurant, red tablecloth, whatever, and you order a glass of quote unquote white wine, and let's say you're in Manhattan and it's like $16 a glass, and it comes out of a big bottle that costs $7. I have a huge problem with that, because I find that customers then think that's what wine is. And I don't think that's what wine should be for $16 a glass. Like, you should be getting a very good wine for $16, even $12, $10. I find that restaurants too often these days, and retail for that matter too, we're too lazy in our selections of wines, whether it's in the retail store, what we put on the shelves, or what we're pouring by the glass, or certainly what we're putting on our wine list. I think we make things too expensive and subsequently more difficult for ourselves. If you're going to a restaurant and you have that bad experience with a wine by the glass, like, that's the end of of your wine experience at that restaurant, right? You're like, I'll just go to a cocktail. I'll go to a beer. I'll go to, I don't know if there's something in a can, or God forbid, I'll just drink a soda or water and move on entirely because of the egregious markups. And it's very frustrating. You've been at this 56 years and I'm 26 years in it, to see what has gone on in the marketplace and seeing escalating prices, but quality has gotten so much better. We should just do a better job, staying at that. You can still do well at that low level, right? You agree or disagree?
Yeah, no, I say this is the best time in the history of the world for the quality of wine around the world. I mean, stuff was not going well when I started years ago. I mean, Chianti, forget about it. It was junk.
What percentage of white grapes were in Chianti back in the day,
20%. Can
right?
you imagine if you're going to say to somebody, all this great Sangiovese, but you have to add Trebbiano?
Yeah.
What? I want to add a white grape. It diluted the whole thing. But today, I want to make this point because I think it was 14 years ago, 16 years ago, with the Gran Selezione of Chianti Classico Reserva. It is one of the top wines in the world. But I went through that, or things like Iago Sangria. I have the top 20 wines sold in the United States in 1970.
Oh my God.
And to your point, the general rule is in a restaurant, whatever the bottle costs is what the glass costs. I just won't go to a restaurant that doesn't have some semblance of order on their wine list. It's a secondary thought, but I think the thing was 25% sales were in wine, but in profit, it's 50%.
Yep.
And so they need to spend much more time on their wine list.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it'll pay back in spades if they do so, right?
To me, you have to be a wine restaurant. To me, you have to be a wine retail store. It's got to be all about, I mean, you guys, you're going to have people want drinks. Sure, give them their drinks. I was actually at a restaurant we're back to Grand Central again, the brasserie there that just opened.
The Grand Brasserie, yeah.
Unbelievable, great wine list.
Yeah.
Great wine list and reasonable. Once again, the most important thing is find the right retailer for wine and find the right restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't mind buying wine in a restaurant. I certainly love to support. I also don't mind paying corkage. There's certainly great restaurants that have great wine lists. So we've got the BYO Wine Collector Dinner at Kittle House Inn, historically amazing wine list, one of the best in the country. Always happy to purchase wine off their list. On the other hand, you go to other local restaurants and they've got like 15 wines and they're all like a 400% markup. And then they say, yeah, you can't bring it in. I'll give you $50 corkage fee. And otherwise, I'm not ordering any of this wine, right? So it's opportunity lost for a restaurant to perhaps not allow a reasonable corkage at whatever that looks like. But then the other answer is just do better on the list, do better with the pricing, do better with the selection, just do better overall.
Up until the pandemic, restaurateurs are restaurateurs. They're not wine people, most of them. And so they're scared to admit that they don't know anything about wine.
Yeah, I'm out there pitching myself currently to do with some friends of mine who own restaurants. So I'm like, I'll do your list for you. Make a section, Daniel Posner Selections. That's what I'm trying to do in the Westchester wine and food scene to enhance the programming right now. These are good restaurants with good wine lists, but they can be great wine lists. And because you've created a number of great, amazing historic wine lists in your career, it's not a heavy lift for, say, you or I on that, right? I mean, we're knowledgeable enough to know where we can just, I can come up with 10 great wines by the glass blindfolded, literally, and I can get a selection of 75 great wines at good prices.
I wanted to do one more bottled up real quickly, but it's exactly what you're talking about. In my day, when I started restaurants, 80% of the wines were in the box, meaning, the Jadots of the world, or the Mondavis of the world, the Antinors of the world, and 20% was, this is my finding thing. Today, unfortunately, my experience is it's 80% out of the box, 20% in the box, and again, sommeliers competing with each other. They're not going to have the same wine that the restaurant has somewhere else. Actually, I went to a restaurant recently. I didn't know 50% of the wines.
Yeah.
I didn't know where they found them, where they got them. The bottom line is wine destination. You have to become a wine destination restaurant. Windows in the World certainly was, with our wine sales. And then I actually went to Smith & Wollensky after September of 2001 and worked with Alan Stillman. And Alan Stillman, wine destination restaurant. And his saying was, wines gets asses in the seats. That's what I'm doing. I'm getting people to come. And then wine week that he runs twice a year. Everybody, I'm going to Smith & Wollensky. I'm going to have a good bottle of wine. I'm going to have a good glass of wine. They know what they're doing. There's hundreds of other great restaurants in the United States, but they got to understand wine destination. And by the way, when I taught at Windows in the World, Michael Skurnick, but I also taught the busboys. I did teach Harmon, but I also taught the waiters. Ray Wellington, who worked at Windows in the World, was a busboy that took over my job. Everybody, the banquet department, everybody's got to know wine. The operators that are taking reservations got to know wine. Everybody's got to know wine. That's the way you set the purpose. And so I'll stop bottling up here right now. I feel
Yeah,
so.
no, I was, look, first time ever in Bottle Up history, 2 rants by one person. Well done. I appreciate it.
I'm so
Are you
glad.
sweating? I mean, do you need a
Yes,
towel?
I will send you the check.
This was amazing. It was amazing. But we do appreciate the time, Mr. Kevin Zraly. I'm going to mispronounce your name every time now. Kevin Zraly, which is ripe wine. I mean, you look like a ripe wine. So well done.
I'm very sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that you're listening to these two guys.
Yeah.
We have been working together for a very long time. And it's been actually a pleasure, Daniel, to work with you with the Westchester Magazine and other events I've done with you.
Yeah.
Remain nameless.
More coming. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in to this amazing episode of Bottled Up. I hope you enjoy it. I want to thank Kevin immensely for taking time out of his very busy tennis schedule for joining us. We hope to have him back here again very soon. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Cheers.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Thanks for hanging out with us on this episode of Bottled Up. If this episode gave you a new bottle to try or a new way to think about wine, share it with someone you'd open a bottle with. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And as always, drink what you love. I'm Daniel Posner, and we'll see you next time.